Open the special meeting of Board of Selectmen for treasurer, town clerk interviews, November 17, 2023 at noon. All right. We got first candidate is Edna Holloway. Why don't you start off, Edna, give us a little background on you.
So, okay, I moved to Ocam in 1985, and we've been here ever since. I became treasurer in 1995, and then I worked until 2004, I think it was. I have to remember, I got so many numbers in my head. And that was the only reason I left then. It became an appointed combined position treasurer collector, and I just didn't have time to do both because I was working in Pelham at the time for 32 hours a week. So I really didn't have time to do both. Otherwise, I would have stayed on longer. Then I retired from there in 16. And well, I went to Pelham in 2004. 2006, the town clerk left for another job, and I was interim for 7 months till the next election. So I've had that experience, and I retired completely in 2016, and I just been volunteering and working on polls and stuff for the town.
So what made you interested in the interim position?
Well, I like working with Chris during the elections, and a couple of times I even did town meetings for her when she was out of town. A couple of the elections too, when she was out of town, I had to run the whole thing. So I found it was an interesting job. And I enjoyed it when I was in Pelham too, as interim.
Okay.
What about the job excites you, and what about the position makes you anxious?
Let's see. I really like working with the people. I think that kind of excites me. I've always been somewhat of a talker. and I think probably the one that bothers me the most, and it isn't even that bad, is learning the state computer, because that can be, it's more, because Chris has shown me a little bit, and I used it back in Pelham, but it has changed quite a bit. And so I think it's the learning curve there will be the fun part.
So you mentioned the people. So what do you think it means to provide exceptional customer service to residents and fellow colleagues?
Okay, I feel that we should be fair with all the dealings we do with these people, and try to, when I was treasurer collector, I always try to help each other out in the town, different people, and even, and then with the people, I feel, to go overboard to help them if they have questions, to work and find answers for them, basically, and make sure everybody's happy as much as you can.
As much as you can.
Yeah.
And how about with other colleagues, boards, departments, elected officials?
I feel that you should be able to talk to them and explain how you feel about things.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't like it, I mean, it's, part of being a team
Mm-hmm.
and working with each other too. Like I said, I always enjoyed, when I was treasurer, if somebody came in and asked for field cards, I'd go out and help them find the one they needed. I just didn't say, that's not my job description. I would go, help them do things like that too. As much as I was able to help them anyway.
Okay. What do you have available like for hours during the week? Are you working somewhere else or?
No, I'm not working anywhere else. The only thing, like every other Wednesday, I have a quote group over at church that I kind of run. So, but I can always change things there too if I have to.
I guess my question is, what Chris's hours are? You could handle those hours?
Yeah, if that's what you want me to do, stay like hers from 6 to 8 on Monday nights and then Friday mornings. Yeah, and then in between I can just fill in
Right.
when needed.
Right. That's kind of what we're looking for.
Okay, yeah.
Just no big changes,
Okay,
you know. One other thing is the town meeting approved, and now it's going to the ballot. That position will not be elected, it'll be appointed.
Right.
What are your feelings on that?
well, in some ways I think it's a good idea, but in other ways it's not. You get people from town seem to work harder for the town than people, sometimes getting other people in is hard to, like, in finding some of the positions here, it's hard to get other
Mhm.
people. But otherwise, I think I voted for it both ways, both for treasurer collector, because I felt you could get more professional people in that knows it instead of, getting somebody right off the street that's had no clue if they're elected. So I think it's better that way.
I can go either way.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, it's, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the benefits of the elected side of it, but I can also see the benefits of the appointed
Appointed
side.
side,
you know.
yeah,
The appointed side, I know people have come to me and said, geez, we don't want the selectmen having that kind of control.
Mm.
We don't. We hire, we fire, we accept the hours and the pay. That's it.
is it,
Everything else is governed by state, federal law.
right, yeah.
We have no authority there at all,
And, yeah, right,
so,
yeah, I agree with that one.
so it can go either way. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't care one way or another.
well, some people feel that, sometimes the selectmen have too much power over them, telling them what to do. For instance, when I was, this a long time ago, when I was working in Brookfield, the highway superintendent came in and was complaining that the selectmen were telling him he had to sand the roads or something, not sand or sweep the roads or something. And he says, I don't have time to do that. I should be doing this now.
Mhm.
So, he was really upset. I don't know how long he lasted there, but it was still,
I agree with it, because I've been in a department, as a department head, and I know exactly what that's
right,
all
yeah,
about.
yeah,
Our job is not to micromanage
good,
at all,
yeah,
at all. I don't tell Kevin how much sand to put out there.
right,
I
yeah.
wouldn't even think of doing
Well,
that.
you probably wouldn't even know how much to put.
Exactly. I
Right,
mean, that's why we hire these people to do
Right,
that,
yeah. Yeah.
Our job is to maintain overall,
Keep everything running
keep everything
smoothly,
running.
yeah,
It's not telling you gotta do this and that.
right,
No.
yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Well, the one was the 15 hours a week. Is that actually working 15 hours, or like if some weeks I get done within 10 hours and I could do 15 the next or whatever, so it'd be
Yeah.
adjustable? Okay, that's one of them. And the other question is, there'll be 2 elections if you take me on. And so I was wondering, how would I get compensated for them?
Chris just put a request in for an additional $6,000.
Oh, okay.
So the special town meeting will have that as an article.
Oh, okay. So that would help.
We'll have
Okay.
that covered.
And let's see. So, another thing, Chris gets compensated for the census. It's $1,000 appropriated. Will I be able to use that too, or shall I just stay on the hourly rate?
You would get whatever Chris gets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's about all I have right now.
So, customer service to residents and other elected, appointed boards, committees, I think is, for me, one of the most important pieces to any person who works for the town. But especially in the town clerk, there's responsibilities for being a public information request.
Right, yeah.
So what's your thoughts on government transparency? How can you ensure that we're responsive to questions, concerns, and providing that information timely and appropriately?
Well, I know Chris takes them all in right now, right? And so then she would have to send it to each department. And then I would have, she has to keep track of how soon those replies are sent back. And I think it's very important for people to know what's going on. It's part of the town, you know, we have a lot of people that like to know.
Are there any things in OCAM that you would like to see improved in the processes of the town clerk
Well, I don't know,
or modernized?
yeah. I don't really think so right now, because like I don't work there day on day, you know, once I get there, maybe there's something that I change or, but that's kind of how I feel on that right now.
Okay.
Do you think down the road, there should be an assistant town clerk on stipend
Um,
to fill in?
well, yeah, just maybe once in a great while when, you know, maybe like the town clerk is gone.
Not a regular weekly thing,
No.
I'm saying like a stipend, you know.
Well, like, I
you know.
don't know, I'm trying to think what. It's kind of hard to say really if it's needed right now, you know.
Depends on who's in that office.
Right, yeah,
you
right,
know.
and how many irate customers you have.
But it could also be like if this is an elected or appointed position, if they resign, like
Oh,
you
yeah.
have nobody in
Right,
that
yeah.
spot to fill in, what do you do?
Yeah.
Or a
Right.
medical issue,
Yeah.
and you can't work or something, or
Well, you know, because I had been thinking if, you know, if I needed help, I was gonna call Chris, and I was just saying, well, you know, where she knows all this stuff, maybe we could, you know, pay her a stipend to come in and help me out or something like that, if she's willing, you know,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I felt with that one.
yeah. So this will be starting December 21st. That's when
Okay.
Chris's last day is.
Yeah.
You think it would be a good idea for you to come in a couple days and work with her prior?
Yeah, I plan on that, yeah.
Okay.
Wanted-
I
yeah.
was gonna suggest that, but.
Yeah, we've talked about it, and she said she'd be happy to show me what needs to
Okay.
be done. Actually, at the last election, she had me in there showing me a lot of stuff already, where different books are
Yep,
kept and different things that would need to know about. And like you have to keep some election stuff, you have to keep a month, others you gotta keep 22 months.
Right.
So, you know, so she was showing me all those, but I knew that part anyway, but.
All right, I don't have any other questions, because I know you. but
Yeah, I don't know, is that good or bad?
that's good.
You have any other questions? Sorry, I didn't get this email, then I was having trouble getting it uploaded, and I said, well, I might as well print it and drive it up, you know? It was like-
That's okay.
it was having-
We still do that in this town,
I
so
know,
it's
yeah, I know,
okay.
which is good, yeah, I don't know what, I was on my husband's computer, and every time I tried to get on my email, it was his email, and I go, how do I get out of that? I couldn't figure it out for the life of me, just the way it was all set up, it's like, what did he do here? So,
You sound like my wife.
yeah, that's his computer, I have my phone that I use.
All right, I don't have any more questions. You?
I would move we take a temporary recess until
Yeah.
12:30.
Okay, great, thank you.
Be in touch. 12:23, we're back on the record. Second candidate, Marcy Kennan. Oh, why don't you start off by just giving us a background.
I grew up in this town. I attended Quabbin Regional High School and graduated in 2001. I was enrolled at Becker College during September 11th. So as you well know, things changed, on the home front, and veterinary school was not for me at the time. I found myself to not really be studious enough to pursue that doctorate at the time, and I enlisted into the Army. I went to Fort Leonard Wood for my basic training and training as a military police officer. So upon return, I joined my unit, the 94th MP Company out of Londonderry, New Hampshire. And I spent 3 or so years with them before I transferred to the Maine National Guard, where I worked as a platoon leader for the 133rd Combat Engineer Battalion. And I was a cadet at the time, as well as a full-time soldier. Going to school at that point, I had changed my career to wanting to become a game warden, and really, I'm very passionate about the environment, so I attended Unity College in Maine and was fortunate to attendance there and work for the Maine National Guard out of Belfast and Skowhegan. And so I did that for 3 years and ended my contract with the Army and came home, where I took upon a 150-acre estate, my brother and my father in guardianship. And my family and I faced some hardships and struggles during that time, but we've persevered, and I've really worked hard to clean up the property that was my father's, that he had a lot of, scrap metal and junk on the property that I have since recycled and made sure, environmental, things are, up to code and where they should be. So I take great pride in that. I take great pride in my town and where I live. My work history since I've been home from the service is a bit varied. I did try to go back to the veterinary field, and I just found that wasn't for me. And I'm a new mom, so I am looking to get back out there. I haven't been employed in a little while, but I have full confidence that I'm more than capable of handling the workload of this town.
What do you know about the town clerk position?
I understand that she, Mrs. Marderosian, is in charge of sending out ballots and to ensure that everyone is registered who would like to be registered. Certainly handling administrative duties for the town, licensures, birth certificates, notarized and confidential documents.
You're a notary?
I am not a notary.
See as a challenge in that position.
I think with any job, deadlines, and certainly with an election or, certain documents and letters have to be sent out on time, and confidentiality to the utmost importance. I would say just ensuring that those specific letters got out. I worked for the town of Ocam post office,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
so and the importance of attention to detail and confidentiality is very important.
What made you interested in this position?
I was made aware of the position actually by Fred Gehring, and just getting a birth certificate for my son, and was told that it would be a good fit for me potentially. So give it a shot.
What about it excites you?
Working with town residents, getting to know some of the newer residents, in some of the newer neighborhoods, and being more involved in my town and development of OCAM.
What does customer service mean for residents and for other elected appointed boards, committees, and officials?
Customer service, I would say that it is representative of, the residents of this town and ensuring that, you know, professionalism and in certain circumstances, safety or the, proper documentation is where it needs to be, or, that the residents have someone who is there for them to be able to handle situations that may arise and or be able to assist them with and have knowledge of some of the inner town workings to be able to help, each resident with their individual needs or help that they may need.
You're an MP, so you have no problem reading laws and procedures, interpreting them.
That's correct.
You'd have no problem reading the Mass General laws and interpreting.
I'm also very interested in the town history of our area and, some of the colonial heritage and history that's here. So that is one of the things that does excite me about the position.
A lot of records there.
So.
Position starts December 21st. Is that all right with you?
That's okay with me. If I were, selected for the position, I don't have any problem starting December 21st.
If you were selected, we would want you to work with Chris a couple days just to learn
Absolutely,
computers, the state computer and all that.
certainly.
No problem there.
No. I am familiarized with office equipment.
Okay, that's what I was
and
gonna ask you.
Copies, lots of copies, I
Okay, so you
imagine.
can handle all that, all right. The annual town meeting moved to have this position removed from elected to appointed.
Mhm.
The ballot is coming up in May as final choice. How do you feel about that? Appointed or elected? It doesn't matter.
It does not matter to me. It's, if, the town is going to vote, I certainly would hope that I have their vote. But it is what's best for OCAM and that's what needs to be. So I don't have a problem
So you,
either one.
either way.
Doesn't.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
In some of the new bylaws that are happening in town, where I'm concerned about the meetings and being present, or do I have to assist with any meetings other than,
The annual and the special,
Okay.
you would have to be up at that table with us.
okay,
And all you're gonna do is record the votes.
okay,
You really have to get involved in anything other than, because the moderator runs the meeting.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Tom answers the financial questions, we answer the rest of them.
okay.
So,
That was my only question was, every board of selectmen meeting, or if it was just the town meeting?
No, it's the town special,
Okay,
and then every election.
Okay.
State, federal, and local. Which this year we have a lot.
right, yes.
Normally, it's not like that. Okay. Chris works currently Mondays like from 6 to 8 and then 9 to 12 on Fridays.
Mhm.
We'd like to keep that for now in the interim until May.
Okay.
And then at that point, we can expand the hours and figure out a better schedule,
Excellent.
you know. Yes, get this too. If you were not selected for the interim, would you be interested in being the assistant?
Sure. Sure.
Because we're kind of looking at that. We don't have an assistant anything in this town, and it's a problem. Something happens to the clerk or the treasurer or the accountant, we're dead in the water. We have no backups.
Right.
And you don't run a town with no backups, so we've got to do something.
Through Sunday, every other Monday, or it's tough sometimes.
So, you have any other?
Yeah, I have two other questions that I asked the other candidate. I think customer service is a very important piece to any elected or appointed individual in the town. But also giving information. A lot of public records requests go through the clerk as well as other people. What's your thoughts regarding how OCAM can be more transparent?
With as far as residents go and customer service, I think that OCAM should be transparent where OCAM needs to be. As far as confidentiality of the residents and their personal, issues. If there's a situation where it does need to be brought up with other town officials, certainly I would ensure that the necessary chain of command, if you will, or only the right people need to know, and that their business is treated with the utmost respect, and also the town has transparency, if you will, where it needs to. But I think that the town is pretty transparent for the most part, as far as I'm aware and know as a resident. So yeah, full transparency until it's an issue or some professionalism needs to be involved.
Do you see any opportunity for improvement, modernization from your experience in the town clerk, in the office of the town clerk?
I have not, as far as I could perceive, and not to my knowledge, that, I think we're all trying to mechanize and modernize, and get, with social media and, up to snuff here, but I believe that the old mailings are working and,
Keep the post office in business.
yeah, I think things are going smoothly, but certainly, if there is room for improvement, I will do my best to try to find it and get in with these modern times.
Anything else, Sarah?
No?
Do you have anything else?
No?
No.
Thank you, opportunity
Thank you.
to apply and look forward to hearing from you either way.
Yep, no, we'll be
You know
in
what I
touch
like.
with you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, good luck
Great
with the
seeing
rest of
you.
your interviews. and Happy holidays.
Yes.
Yes, you too.
Enjoy.
So the next one is scheduled at 1. So
That's for Tom.
town accountant. So I would move we go in recess until 1 o'clock or sooner if they should show up. And we'll go on mute and video and pause the recording.
Second.
How is everyone?
Meeting at
Yeah.
12:49.
I don't know if you guys need copies of resumes, but,
I forgot them.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you give us an overview of you?
Of me, I guess I'm nearing 7 years in municipal government. I started out in my first town doing just accounts payable. That was my, both kids are in school, get back to work and, get back into the swing of things. At that town, within 4 months, my boss and the assistant town accountant left. So I had no municipal experience and I kind of got thrown in relatively quickly with really no training and no experience. So it went from a 3-person office to a 1-person office and I became the assistant town accountant there. And there was a transition plan to become town accountant, but I wasn't ready. And I vocalized that on several occasions, just that I didn't feel ready with the reporting. Back then, I think back to 7 years ago, Schedule A was thrown around, like just the term. And I was like, what is Schedule A? I hadn't seen it. I had no concept of what it even meant. But the pressure was on and I ended up leaving and going to Bellingham. And it was a much, I don't want to say better experience, but it was a much slower pace experience. They were fully staffed. So there I was the assistant CFO / I believe the title was deputy town accountant. And while working there, I had like high exposure to the grants because COVID hit into, I think, my year 2 there. So I don't know if you guys are kind of familiar with how they unveiled COVID in 2020 for municipalities, but initially CARES came in, on the scene. But the initial guidance was that in order to qualify for CARES, you had to submit everything through FEMA.
Yes.
So I had no idea what, FEMA reporting, I do now, and it's quite brutal actually, but I learned a lot. I became certified in FEMA grants management, but I really liked the exposure to the grants piece of it. And I think those CARES in particular, it was the first time accounting departments had really been hit with grant reporting requirements and just how, it was the first time that office, it was like, here you go, now you guys managed pretty substantial grants and eligibility requirements and everything. And I really liked that piece of it. But the commute in Bellingham was starting to get a little bit wearing from Dudley 5 days a week. And we had lost a staff member temporarily for a health issue, but it was a really elevated period of time. So again, I was back to running the office understaffed. And I think the stress of that over a 6-month period, Northbridge came about and I was like, it would be kind of nice to just decompress for a little bit. And it was a really good opportunity to be closer to home. And what was funny is Northbridge was like my first charge all, not slow pace, but here you go, put the balance sheet together. I had exposure in Bellingham, but I always had really strong oversight and collaboration with the CFO. If there was anything I got, was tripped up on. Northbridge, even though the title was kind of a slow it down a little bit title, it was full charge, Schedule A, put it all together. It was a new software system. And I actually really liked 2 years of just kind of full charge of the yearly reporting, the balance sheet, Schedule A. I became the ARPA administrator there. So I it was interesting to have so much responsibility for a role that I kind of went into, to have a little bit less responsibility and slow it down a bit. But then my boss, after 20 years, decided to leave, and I still, it was a bigger community at a budget of $50 million, and there was a lot of debt, and that was one piece that I had exposure to, bonds and bands, but the type of person I am, I have to have quite a bit of exposure for me to look you in the eyes and say, I'm comfortable doing this. I don't want to do it once and say that I'm an expert. I need to hands-on regularly have exposure to something to be able to tell you I am 100% comfortable doing this. Yes, I can hit the ground running. The debt that they had scared me a bit, and knowing, again, I was like, here we go again, like no boss, and it's like, here you go, Sam. It's typically how it fell. The lesser opportunity, I had seen it for the grant manager. I was a little scared of it. I gave it some thought, and about a month into it, I decided it was still posted, and I said, you know what, if it's fate, just go. It doesn't hurt to talk and see if it could potentially be a good fit. Maybe they filled the position, which ironically I kind of thought they had, which made me feel safer applying. I did. I received the offer, and it was a very scary thing for me, because you're going from a really stable field, like municipal accounting. It is what it is. It's stable. There's really no layoffs. There's no concerns that your position is kind of in unstable waters. A grant manager it's kind of a novelty position, if you will. I mean, it's nice to have. Sure, it's a luxury item. I'm not, but the position itself is. So I'm like, it scared me. But I made the jump. I loved the grants in Bellingham, the exposure to it. And I said, just give it a try. Like, if you don't, you'll regret it. I've been there since February. So we are going on testing out my math skills here, 9 months. I love it. It's totally different, deadline driven, high adrenaline. I love it. And knock on wood, I was a little leery of just Leicester, small rural community. Going into it, I was a little bit like, is Leicester a good contender for grants? Like, does the state look at a small rural town like that and say, yes, we want to give you funding? I didn't know going into it, and that was like a part of my unease stepping into it. Again, I'm gonna knock on wood and, fingers crossed. We have been very successful the last 9 months, so I'm really happy for Leicester. I don't want to give up that position. I want to take it as far as I can possibly go, and it's a really good fit. I love everybody there. The boards are great. The people are great. They've been very supportive. But I guess with this position in particular, I've thought the last couple of months, I obviously could not give, an accounting job in Boston. I couldn't do that part-time. The smaller communities and just the demands of that department, which I'm intimately familiar with, the day-to-day, the quarterly responsibilities, monthly, and then your annual deadlines and, the budget process. I could not do it for a larger town that's, budget even 10 million. I don't think I could do it part-time, possible, but once you get into 15 million, $20 million budgets, the demands of the position are a lot higher. But I also, while I do love my job in Leicester, and I truly do, I don't want to, let me just go back for a second. It does, Leicester, if you're kind of familiar with surrounding towns, they ran into some budgetary woes last year with a failed override.
Yeah.
That was 2 months after I was hired. So I recall that department head meeting and my eye twitching, and I'm like, oh boy, I just came here as a novelty position. It's just the fears that come with it. And I think it left a little bit of an impact. Luckily, we got through. Things are, again, knock on wood, looking a little bit better, but I don't want to lose my accounting experience. And when I say lose, when you do something day in, day out, every day, you know what your responsibilities are. I don't think you ever fully lose the knowledge, but the more time that goes by that you're not utilizing that knowledge. I think it regresses further in the back of your mind. So, for example, the other night I was going through my calendar and, I see OPM interview on there. And I was like, okay, well, if there's technical questions, I'm rolling through year-end journal entries. Probably a weird thing to do, but just my recollection, it's something in that position you do once a year. I stumbled for a minute. It took me a minute to say, oh my God, I'm thinking like just the warrants payable journal. I caught myself calling it payables payable. And it took me, probably 30 seconds to be, no, not payables payable, it's warrants payable. So it's just an example of the longer you go without doing something, the less intimately familiar you are, the more time it's going to take you to go back and retrace your steps and familiarize yourself with the processes. I don't want to let too much time lapse without having regular exposure to it so I can be in a place where I could, 5 years down the road say, I've held municipal accounting in my lap, like I've had continuous regular exposure to doing this. And the truth is, for OCAM, I would never sit in front of you if it was something that I thought I couldn't give you guys. If not, obviously in this situation, I can't give you full attention, 7 days a week, but a fair share of attention that's suitable to the town's needs. You guys have a very small budget, limited resources. I could give you 19 hours a week and be able to say 19 hours a week would be enough for OCAM. Like, I don't want to do anything, in half quantities. And the smaller towns too, I think personality wise, I'm pretty laid back and just being a fit. I do prefer the smaller towns to the larger ones. I'm a face-to-face person. I like human interactions. I'm not a big fan of Zoom and the Brady Bunch method of communicating.
We are on Zoom, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. But like when you're communicating over an issue or a budgetary concern, I mean, will I do it? Yes, I'm not opposed to it. But in terms of effective communication, I prefer face-to-face interactions, eye contact. Let's sit, let's go through paperwork. Let's look at the accounting system on the screen together and try to figure this out. Let's go down to the clerk's office and see where this town meeting warrant was. Where is this? It's just those, I don't want to neglect that. I'm more of an in-person person. And while I can't offer that Monday through Thursday, I can offer that on Fridays to at least be a support system, in the human form.
You said you're available on Fridays.
Yes,
How long?
all day,
All day?
all day. If you had meetings and, obviously budget time or finance committee style meetings, I could make that work as well.
And we do have Zoom, so.
Yes, that is enough.
That was my next question.
Yes, I could do, like I said, I'm not totally opposed to it, just in terms of preference, I do prefer to be physically present and I find it just an easier way to communicate. Like, I'm on a lot of Zooms for the grants or, Teams, GoTo, all that stuff. And I struggle with it because you go to talk and then sometimes you see one of the screens, somebody's mouth starts moving, but there's a delay.
Yep.
It's very awkward.
The commute to Oakham is a little bit better than to Bellingham.
Yes, and it's back roads, there's no traffic. And not only that too, I could do a lot of the day-to-day remotely. AP warrants, anything to do with cash recs. I'm 15 minutes down the road in Leicester. I could get out of work, come here, pick up what I need to do the stuff that's very easy to do from home, bring it back the next day to be processed with the treasurer's office. Stuff like that, it's totally feasible given the locale to where I work to commute here for those items that can be done remotely and then still be a physical presence, in a limited capacity, but, still a capacity.
I am the current town accountant.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
You too. I work for a firm, so we've been in here for about 2 years.
Okay.
So my question, what kind of software experience do you have?
I started out, my first software was Vadar.
Okay,
My second software was a very niche-y software, but it was surprisingly incredibly good. AUC, which stands for Admins Unified Community,
okay,
very robust system. It did payroll, where my other towns had outsourced payroll to Harper's.
okay,
And Northbridge was Munis.
okay. So here we use Springbrook.
Interesting.
So it is the newer version of SoftWrite, when they were bought out.
Right.
So only 2 towns in the state have it.
Okay.
Ocam being one of them. First one.
Wonderful deal.
Yeah. Would you think you have enough time, being that you can only be on site 1 day a week, to learn the software? It is not user-friendly software.
Yes, I absolutely do. I'll be honest with you, I really have not, I don't know how to word it. I've never had appropriate or really any training. I don't want to say appropriate. It's just every accounting office that I walked into was either understaffed or just way behind. Like I was coming in right after a significant understaffing issue. So everybody was bogged down, or we were already understaffed to begin with. The most training I received on a software was in Bellingham, and that was because the CFO had previously worked for the software provider for 20 years. So she designed it essentially. Munis, I found, at least the edition that we had, which was I think the first edition that ever came out in Munis, I received no training, nothing on that. And I struggled. I would say the first week I was ripping my hair out to try to figure it out. I did. It was, a little bit of a slower process, but the addition of Munis we had, like, I'm sure you're familiar being with a firm, you've worked with Munis before, like the cash disbursement journal, without training, you would never know to do that if it was a wire or any type of no check payment. It's just based on other softwares. That was extremely difficult. But after about 2 months, I established pretty strong comfortability with it. Each one of them has their intricacies, for sure. I don't disagree. But at the end of the day, they're all out to do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? They're all out to generate journals or behind the scenes linkages. They're all essentially doing the same things as even the most simplistic software, which in my experience was Vadar. Vadar was a very simplistic system to use. To go to Vadar and then to Munis, I mean, to go to Vadar and then AUC, like a very robust system, that was a little bit difficult, but I picked it up relatively quickly. I'm very thankful that I had the training with AUC that I did, because I think it helped immensely with that transition to Munis without that kind of, I don't want to say coddling, but based on my prior experience, it was nice to get, some training. So I don't see it being an issue. And I have colleagues, I'm actually more intrigued by that, because it's
So
always,
it's not SoftWrite though. It was the company that purchased SoftWrite, but so it's not at all like SoftWrite.
it's okay, so it's totally
Oh,
different.
it's completely different. So
Interesting.
it's like they took the worst parts of SoftWrite, the worst parts of KVS, mushed them together and just said, here you go.
I'm familiar
And
with
because-
KVS too.
And
That's
the
a rough
town
one.
didn't purchase both portions of the software.
Okay,
So the treasurer does not use the software, only the accountant does. So everything that would normally be imported from the treasurer side to the accountant side is manually entered by the accountant. So
so how are cash, if you don't mind me asking, how are cash receipts?
it's manually entered by the accountant.
Okay, is there accounts receivable module, or you just do it by a journal?
I do it by a journal because
Okay.
we didn't purchase the accounts receivable module.
I got you.
And
Okay.
we're not going to, ever.
We would
Okay.
buy some of the other ones first.
Right, right. They'll convert softwares before we buy the other half of it. So my other question would be, how many balance sheets and Schedule As have you done? It sounded like you just did the one in Northbridge.
So there was actually 2 full in
Okay.
Northbridge. Prior to that, in Bellingham, I was less full charge. It was more of a collaboration effort. That was 3 in Bellingham.
Okay,
Schedule A was more full charge in Bellingham. The balance sheet was a collective effort, mostly because the special revenue accounts in Bellingham were astounding, the amount of special revenue accounts in Bellingham. And it took an astronomical amount of time to be able to go
I
through.
believe it.
Yeah,
I
so-
worked in Bellingham.
Yeah, so, but mostly, you know, and it would get kicked back too, once I was done with our, just reconciling our special revenue, making sure that everything tied out, I would then get, here, I got this far in the general fund, take the rest of it. So it was more a collaboration effort, so 5 in total.
Okay.
And I also did interim work in Millville too, where that was the town accountant, I was actually interim treasurer there. The town accountant was also an interim, and that was, the first time doing it at that town, so that was a collaborative effort as well. It probably shouldn't have been, but just trying to bounce ideas off each other, so I technically 6, but it wasn't my purview in that, yeah.
So Oakham is even more rural, obviously, than Leicester. We have less than 2,000 residents. And a lot of grant opportunity. Do you work with the Leicester Regional Public Health Coalition on grants?
Yes, I occasionally do. They're more, I have, actually, we did one through Nacho,
Oh, yeah.
NACCHO, so we did that one.
I don't know if Francis does his own or.
Yeah, it's kind of, I do talk to Francis regularly about opportunities, but thus far I've only had the opportunity to work with them to completion on one. There was another one recently for ADA compliancy. I forget the organization that it was through, but we decided to turn it down just because we didn't have enough time to collect all the required documents. But yes,
So I am on the Board of Health, and so to give you some background on how current day we're managing our processes. So right now, if we have a payable, it goes into a mailbox.
okay,
And then it gets scanned weekly to Lori, and then gets processed that way. I certainly think that it would be great if we could consider either electronic submission, if it's even legal. I don't know if it is to submit electronically, or the opportunity for someone to come in and collect. Like if you're only here on Fridays, if someone could come in on Monday, Tuesday, and get the stack of stuff so that you actually have work that you could be doing during the week.
Oh, absolutely.
Because right now, I think it only gets, does it only
It
get
only gets
scanned?
scanned once.
Yeah.
It's bi-weekly because
Yeah.
your warrant is due on Monday morning because you sign Monday night.
Yeah, so usually all the departments have everything in by the end of Wednesday day, at the very latest, first thing Thursday morning. I gather all the information, scan it over to Lori, first thing Thursday morning, gives her Thursday, Friday. And there, in case there's anything that needs to be tracked via email. And then once they're, the accountant does what they need to do, either by Friday afternoon or Monday morning, we print the checks in-house.
Yeah, and then the
Okay.
same, the payroll gets scanned to us
Payroll.
Friday, and then it gets returned as soon as Wendy is done balancing it.
So there's not a lot of time for
No.
turnover.
okay.
It's really Friday,
Mhm.
Friday and Monday morning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it wouldn't be if we
Change the,
Monday, Sunday through Saturday.
yes, correct. But we have a weird pay.
Yes,
It's
very
been like
odd
that for
pay.
100 years
Yes.
and it needs to change.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
No, that doesn't worry me in the least. That's why I had suggested, if needed, just anything that could be done, like I said, in the evenings or whatnot. I could come here after work. It's literally 15 minutes from Leicester Town Hall and pick up. So if there was deadlines for when, bills had to be signed off on, or there was a centralized bin, let's just say it was Tuesday at, 5 o'clock, I could be here bad example, Tuesdays are late night. I could be here Tuesday at 7:15 and pick up those, or Wednesday at 5 o'clock, Wednesday at 5:15, I could be here.
Um, you strike me as somebody who certainly believes in customer service.
Yes.
You know, with the residents, with other boards, departments. We're, it's a small group of people who do all the work. And with a very limited number of employees. So we have a lot of well, I wouldn't say we have a lot, but we have a good number of volunteers and a lot of work gets put on the few employees that we have,
That way, yes,
so.
dual roles and, yeah.
You comfortable with procurement law, contracts?
Yes, I attended all three, supplies and services, contracting, and then, initially the overview. I never was designated because for every town I was in at the time, per the charter, you had to be the chief procurement officer to be designated, and per the charter, the chief procurement officer was always the town manager or the town administrator. So I was never designated. I know that they have since changed the regulation to where you don't have to be the, to receive your designation, or some people call it the certification, but I never pursued that, but I day in, day out, I mean, that's critical to, making sure that you're not paying a $12,000 bill or God
Which is
forbid, a
that's been an
$60,000
issue here since I've started, is invoices constantly come through with no procurement.
With no procurement, yes. So I am very familiar. I mean, we had at one of the towns I was in, we had seen a case of bid splitting. So ever since then, and we had caught it, but we had caught it at the third bill. So by the time the two had been received, they had already been paid. And yes, they were under 50 and there were quotes involved, but it should have gone the RFP IFB route because the total project cost with the third invoice was over that 50. So we held it, we did not issue payment for that, but that particular instance I was already a kind of a stickler about, I was a stickler about it, and I hate to take a hard line, but when you see that happening, it really makes you take a very, very close eye, not just to the monetary amount and the vendor, but the actual project that's going on, because you don't know if that's invoice one and there's 4 more coming.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, as much as I hate to say I'm a diehard stickler for it, I am, because ultimately it's the town accountant's name on it. You issue payment for it, so.
My last question is, I imagine all of the towns that you work in have been under a town administrator
So my first town was actually a town manager style of government.
or town manager.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what Dennis's title was in Bellingham. He was actually a town administrator, which is ironic for a large town like Bellingham. Northbridge town manager. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so,
sorry. took me a minute there.
we don't have one. We're one of a few dozen that do not have a town administrator or a town manager.
So you run the show.
So it's the
I run nothing, they run the show.
The Board of Selectmen, it's supported day to day by the admin. So any concerns about not having, someone to give you a definitive answer in the moment where it might have to wait to a meeting?
I don't know, I was gonna joke and say not yet, but I'll be honest with you, even under a town administrator and town manager style of government, there are seldom times in my career that I've ever gotten an instantaneous answer.
Okay.
No.
Yep.
So we won't be any worse.
Okay, no, not at all. Sorry.
Hopefully they don't watch this on YouTube.
That's okay. My current employer's heard it all before, it's nothing I understand.
What are it says for certifications,
Yes.
preferred Massachusetts accountant and auditor's certification is preferred.
Yes, so I do not have that. I was going to take the first class in 2020. Ironically, the time of the class came about right as COVID hit. So I was signed up, the hotel was booked in Amherst, and COVID hit, and they actually canceled that year. So we all received refunds. In 2021, the intention was again to go, do what I hadn't done the year prior. But my boss at the time was having some issues and was out of the office. They had been understaffed for a while, so there was an office coverage issue. I wasn't able to attend in 2021, and in 2022, he was on his way to being outgoing, so I never did get to attend. I'm absolutely not opposed to it. It's just something that, you know, the way the cards and the stars aligned, it just didn't happen.
Would that be something you'd be able to do with your current employer? Because it is a commitment.
It is, and it's, yeah, I mean, I would have to quite literally take a week off. I would have to talk to my current employer and see how that logistically could work. But, so I don't have a definitive answer right now.
No other question?
All set. All set?
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll be in
guys.
touch.
Thank you.
The Friday worked out for you.
It did, it really did.
Herbie told me to go easy on
I love Herbie. I miss him. He was on the board.
Motion to adjourn?
you. Motion.
Thank you guys. It was very nice to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.